All right, everybody, welcome to Earth Science. So, if you weren't here the day we talked about conclusions, here's what we did. If you were here, then you're set. You don't really need to be watching this video. What I did was I took three conclusions from very high reading level, difficult for us to read in the 10th grade scientific journals. And what this means is that somebody that has gone to school for like a decade after high school and dedicated their life to figuring something out is writing their like culminating paper and putting it out there in the world to be perhaps published by things like the Journal of Insect Physiology or Earth and Planetary Science Letters, things that are peer reviewed, where other experts would read that, analyze it, criticize it, and see if it's fit to be published. So it's like a big deal that a paper would make it this far. And since we don't have like the specific knowledge to read these, unless you know a lot about abdominal pumping in honeybees or evacuation experiments and exit passages in an underwater road shield tunnel, they're kind of difficult to read, right? So why am I doing it, or why did I do it to everybody that was in class? I wanted to say, like, even though our experiment was not this difficult or involved, it was relatively simple, like put two things in front of a lamp, they heat up for a while, then they cool off for a while. Could we take what, one moment. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. So, again, why did we look at these? Because all we want to do is take our simple experiment and try to extract what does a conclusion look like. And one at a very high level really is going to have some in common with what you do for a very simple experiment. So this document will be here. If you want to try to read these, go for it. If it's like, wow, that's way too much, which realistically it is, and don't worry about it. Let's talk about what we see here, though, that would apply to ours. So what a lot of people noticed was right away, evacuation experiments were conducted to examine the movement speed and blah, 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 blah. Basically, what's the first sentence say is, here's what we did, right? So you're going to have, as part of yours, these will be the things that we want to see in your conclusion is a like a setup. Like, what did you do in this experiment? Now, I'll tell you right now, you only have to do this for one of the three experiments that we did. All right, so throw that out there. We'll pick the one that kind of went the best for you. You don't have to write it for all three. So choose one in which the data like kind of worked, and just tell me what you did in the experiment. And again, it's not going to be as complicated as this looks. Don't let this make you scared. It's simple. You guys took either a black can and a shiny can and put them in front of a lamp for 15 minutes and then away for 15 minutes. Just kind of give me a couple sentences explaining the basics of what you did in the experiment, maybe including variables, which would be either sand versus water, black versus shiny, or covered versus uncovered, right? So there you go. First part's done. Second part, what do you notice in all three? I see numbers, numbers, numbers. Numbers, 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 numbers. You must include data. No data, incomplete right off the bat. I'm not even going to pretend that's not a thing. It's got to be there, okay? Now, here's something that's going to come into maybe something that you've seen in ELA or in history, social studies class, is make a claim. Now, when they say that in those classes, usually the next thing out of their mouth is that you have to support it with something from the text, right? Well, we also have to support it. But we don't have a text that we went by. We've got a whole bunch of numbers that we went through. So what you have to do is support your claim with data from the experiment. I'm saying that sand heats up faster than water. You can do it with rate of changes if you want to. Some people did that. You could do it with just the raw numbers that it went up by this many compared to the water that only went up by this many. Make a claim. Sand heats up more than water does. And support that claim with numbers from the experiment. If there's not numbers, you're not kind of given the whole story. You're not giving the whole story to us. We need those numbers to say, okay, this person said this is their claim, and they support it with that evidence from their own experiments. Okay? That really can kind of roll into the results. So these three that are in bold are like the meat and potatoes of it. And you could do it like bullet, bullet, bullet if you want. Well, not bullets. You could do it sentence, sentence, sentence. If you kind of mush these together and have them in the middle of your little paragraph, that's fine. I'm looking for all those to be there. I'm not saying it has to be in exactly this order or anything. And then finally, we'll go back to small text. What we want is, and it sounds weird to say you need a conclusion for your conclusion, but you do. Conclusion slash implications. Maybe the hardest part of it. What are the implications of what you did? And again, let's not get scared by like how complicated these look, or scared by the idea that I'm writing in science class. Keep it simple. Are you doing black versus shiny? So what are the implications of black heating up faster? Maybe it makes more efficient solar panels if they're dark in color. Maybe rooftops that are black, like in cities that absorb heat, is counterintuitive when you're spending energy to cool down buildings in the summer with air conditioning. What is something you can come up with that happens in real life based on the experiment that you're picking, black versus shiny, or sand versus water? Therefore, at the beach, blah 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 blah. Here's what happens. Okay, maybe the hardest part because you got to come up with it a little bit on your own, but don't overthink it or get panicked about it. And if you run into trouble, just let me know and we'll figure it out. Okay. So when I go to grade these and I look at and I pop this open, I mean I'm looking for like before I even start reading, I'm looking and seeing if there's numbers. If there's no numbers, it's very likely instantly going to come back to you incomplete. And then I'm basically going to look and see if all these parts are there. And if you follow that little formula, there should be 5 little sections. Okay, so as you write, just make sure all 5 of those chunks are there, and you will be fine. Okay, you can just use this video, or I'll put the documents. I'll put a link to it if you want it on the survival guide as well. All right, good luck, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.